What if I told you that there is a citizenship that almost every Black person in the Americas could be eligible for? No relocation required, no million-dollar investment, just ancestry and acknowledgement. Hey YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new here, I'm Tia, a half Jamaican, half Nigerian American who now lives between Europe and Africa. My whole life has been set against the backdrop of different realities from within the global Black diaspora. I was raised in the US in an Afro-Caribbean household. I moved and spent a decade in an Afro-European context, and over the last 2 years, I've been setting down my own roots back in a Black African context. I spent my whole life observing what it means to be Black and thinking about what role that plays in a human experience. Hi guys, here we are at the airport with my friends and my family.
Did she not just take this video?
There was no sound. Because I'm moving to Italy right now. The conclusions that I came to led me to making it my life's mission to reconnect as many people in the diaspora back to the continent as possible. So with all that being said, of course the news of a quote-unquote Black citizenship struck me, and I couldn't help but make it the topic of this week's video. Citizenship by race. Benin's new citizenship by ancestry sends a message to the children of the Black African diaspora, forcibly dispersed by the transatlantic slave trade, that we are welcome home. Last weekend, the internet was buzzing with the news that Grammy award-winning artist Ciara officially received citizenship in Benin. Not through naturalization, not through residency, but through ancestry. It was a highly publicized event that was attended by government ministers and plastered all over social media. But while Ciara might be the most popular case, she actually adds to a small but growing list of people gaining citizenship through this route. A route which is part of a broader movement to recognize the global Black diaspora through citizenship, which I think seems to be gaining more traction. Let's take a closer look at what it means, how it works, and why it might be one of the most powerful legal gestures towards diaspora reconnection that we've ever seen. The Republic of Benin, formerly Dahomey, was one of the largest slave ports in the Atlantic trade. Over 1.5 million Africans are estimated to have been taken from the Bight of Benin, a territory which covers modern-day Togo, Benin, and Nigeria. But it has been reported that close to 1 million of them passed through the port of Ouidah, a coastal town in Benin. Ouidah's slave trading port was one of Africa's most active in the 18th and 19th centuries. Men, women, and children were captured, chained, and forced onto ships, mainly destined for what would become the United States, Brazil, and the Caribbean. Unlike many African nations involved in the slave trade, Benin has taken steps to acknowledge its historical role and responsibility. The country organized a UNESCO-sponsored conference in the 1990s to document the slave trade's history. In 1999, in a symbolic gesture, President Matthew Carriacou knelt at a Baltimore church and apologized to African Americans for Africa's participation in the slave trade. The country also enacted various monuments to commemorate the dark chapter of its past, such as the Door of No Return and the Tree of Forgetfulness in the town of Ouidah. In this latest episode, we see Beninese lawmakers pass a 2024 law granting the right to citizenship to all over the age of 18 who do not already hold an African citizenship and can trace their lineage to the transatlantic slave trade. This is huge and significant because while other similar laws restrict lineage to their own borders, which can be hard to trace decisively, the Beninese law extends broadly to anyone with genetics from the sub-Saharan African region. So basically, anyone who is a descendant of slaves in the Americas. What I personally love about this law is that it's simple, straightforward, and economically accessible. As I already mentioned, you only need to have 3 requisites: be over the age of 18, not already hold an African citizenship, and prove your lineage to sub-Saharan Africa, which can be done through a DNA test. You go to the government website and apply through the portal completely remotely. You fill out your application, upload your documents, pay a $100 fee, and after 3 months you will have your provisional certificate of nationality, which allows you to enter Benin within 3 years to complete the process and claim your passport. It's remote, and honestly, in the world of bureaucracy, $100 is nothing and 3 months is like the speed of light. So those were the requirements when I got the idea to make this video a week ago, but I see that the requirements have since changed to be a $300 fee, and there's no longer a 3-month wait time for the provisional citizenship document. On the one hand, I would say this is a great introductory lesson to Africa and, you know, Black people. But on the other hand, I would say that, as I already mentioned, $100 was insanely cheap for something like this. Usually when you apply for citizenship, it does cost upwards of $300. If I were to apply for Italian citizenship tomorrow, it would cost me 400 euros. So that price is in line with what everybody else asks for something like this. And I can imagine that if they are getting thousands of applications now, it would be pretty hard to stick to that 3-month approval process. So it's unfortunate that it's become a little bit harder, but everything else in the video that I say does still ring true. While there are no minimum percentages for the amount of African ancestry you need to hold, approval is up to the discretion of Benin officials. So I would assume that if you're someone with like 1% ancestry and isn't actually Black, just applying to apply because, you know, people are weird, I would assume that you would be denied. I think it's amazing, and I would love to see other African countries implement similar initiatives. This approach creates a meaningful pathway for diaspora reconnection through legal recognition, which has both practical and symbolic value. I think the most popular and accessible path to citizenship that existed before this was Ghana's program, which allowed people in diaspora to apply for a 5-year right of abode. This right of abode granted them the right to live and work in Ghana without restrictions. After living in Ghana for a set amount of years, they could then apply for Ghanaian citizenship through a facilitated process. But as you can see, Benin's approach is much more immediate, simple, and affordable. It doesn't require you to relocate first or make significant investments. It recognizes the historical injustice of the slave trade and offers a direct path to citizenship based on ancestry alone. This removes many of the practical barriers that have previously prevented diaspora members from claiming African citizenship, making it truly revolutionary both in scope and impact. Once you become a citizen of Benin, you also become a citizen of ECOWAS, or the Economic Community of West African States, which allows you to live and work freely not only in Benin, but also in Cape Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Togo, and Nigeria. So Benin acknowledges its role as being one of the former doors of no return out of Africa for enslaved African people by becoming the gateway back to Africa for their descendants. I think it's kind of poetic and beautiful. I would love to see Nigeria do something similar, because it's estimated that up to 35% of all enslaved Africans that were taken to the Americas actually came from what is now modern-day Nigeria. When I did my own DNA test many years ago, and you can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about this, from my understanding, when you're a woman, they analyze the DNA from your mom's side, and so on my mom's Jamaican side, I found out not only that I was 99% West African, but specifically, I was 80% Nigerian. On my mom's Jamaican side, I was 80% Nigerian. For many Black people in the West, this is monumental. It's not just symbolic or ceremonial, it is an open door to ECOWAS and its economic opportunities, to ancestral land that carries your history, to a legal identity that officially recognizes and says, you belong here. You have always belonged here. It's citizenship not based on conquest, paperwork, immigration quotas, or colonization, but on bloodlines, historical reconciliation, and on healing generational trauma. It acknowledges a painful past while offering a pathway to reconnection that many have sought for generations. And given the increasing instability in so many parts of the world, politically, socially, economically, and even environmentally, having a second or third citizenship rooted in history and identity isn't just nice to have. It's powerful and it's strategic. It's freedom of movement and opportunity in an uncertain world. As someone who holds American, Jamaican, and Nigerian citizenship, and who spent her adult life straddling continents, building bridges, and navigating different cultural contexts, I can say with certainty, this kind of legal access matters profoundly. It changes how you see yourself and your place in the world. It's more than just a plan B or an insurance policy. It's recognition that our futures are intertwined with our origins, no matter how violently they were disrupted.
And the two forces must go forward together. And so the Organization of Afro-American Unity has a program to link the Afro-Americans with the Africans and the Africans with the Afro-Americans. When I say Afro-Americans, I mean those throughout the entire Western Hemisphere. This is our only hope. Our hope is in a strong Africa. And when Africa is strong, our position in America will be one of respect. But if Africa is weak, we will never be in a position of respect in America.
To me, this law says, we see you. You are not just the descendants of pain, but the inheritors of a legacy that was interrupted, never erased. You are still connected by blood, by spirit, and an unbreakable thread that spans oceans and centuries. And now, you have the paperwork to prove what your soul has always known. Whether or not you ever live in Benin or even visit, it's profoundly meaningful to know that somewhere on this earth, a nation has recognized your belonging, not as charity, but as birthright. They've codified in law what history tried to deny, that the violent uprooting of your ancestors was never meant to be permanent. That despite generations of separation, despite systemic attempts to sever your cultural connections, despite the deliberate erasure of names and languages and traditions, you still belong because you matter, because your ancestors matter, because their forced departure was never meant to be a permanent exile, and you were never meant to be stateless in spirit or in legal recognition. This citizenship acknowledges something deeper than politics or paperwork. It recognizes that the wound that has never fully healed across the Black diaspora, the question of home, of belonging, of having a place where your existence doesn't need to be justified or explained. A place where you aren't a minority, a guest, or an anomaly, but simply a returning child of the soil. What do you think of this new gesture by Benin? Would you apply for citizenship if eligible? Do you feel like having an African passport could genuinely help you reconnect with your ancestral roots? Or is it more symbolic for you? I would be interested to know, has this sparked conversations within your family or community? Let's talk about all of this and more in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your guys' perspectives. If you guys found this video interesting and want more diaspora-focused content or videos exploring the connections between Africa and its global children, then don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you guys next time. Mwah.